Hello everyone. Today, I want to talk about something that deeply affects all of us, especially in the context of striving for success, our comfort zones. Now, before we dive in, let's first define what a comfort zone is. Essentially, it's that psychological space where we feel safe, where our habits and routines reside, and where things are predictable. It's the world we know and control. But here's the irony. While our comfort zone might feel safe, it is often the biggest obstacle standing between us and success. In the fast-paced world we live in today, everyone is chasing success. We are surrounded by success stories, motivational speakers, influencers, and social media portraying an endless highlight reel of people's achievements. And while this flood of information should, in theory, inspire us, it often does the opposite. Many people find themselves stuck in cycles of procrastination, anxiety, and fear of failure. Why? Because these feelings arise from our reluctance to step out of our comfort zones. We know what success looks like. We want it badly, but we are paralyzed by the idea of change. One of the biggest challenges of our time is that we equate success with security and stability. We think that if we have a secure job, if our life is predictable, if we avoid risks, we're doing okay. But the reality is success demands growth, and growth, by its very nature, requires us to leave behind what's familiar and step into the unknown. Let's talk about the idea of impermanence, something that's at the heart of many philosophical traditions, including Buddhism. In the context of today's discussion, it's vital to grasp that nothing in life is permanent, not our circumstances, not our relationships, and certainly not our comfort zones. Yet, we hold on to the belief that staying where we are, whether it's in a job we dislike, a skill set that's outdated, or even a mindset that's no longer serving us, will keep us safe. The truth is, the world is constantly changing around us. If we don't change with it, we risk being left behind. This is especially relevant in the modern pursuit of success. The world is more competitive than ever before. Technology is evolving rapidly. Industries are transforming, and job markets are becoming increasingly demanding. In this environment, the skills that brought us success yesterday might not be relevant tomorrow. And yet, so many people hesitate to learn new skills or explore new opportunities because they are afraid of stepping outside their comfort zones. Why is that? Because we're hardwired to seek comfort and avoid discomfort. The brain interprets anything unfamiliar as a potential threat. It's part of our survival instinct. But in today's world, this survival mechanism works against us. We mistake the discomfort of growth for danger, and we stay stagnant. We stay in jobs we dislike because they're familiar. We avoid new challenges because failure seems scary. But here's the thing. Growth only happens when we are uncomfortable. Look at any successful person, and you'll see that they all have one thing in common. They've mastered the art of embracing discomfort. Whether it's Elon Musk, who has famously said that starting a business is like eating glass and staring into the abyss, or J.K. Rowling, who faced numerous rejections before Harry Potter became a global phenomenon. Their stories are about overcoming fear and stepping into the unknown. They embraced the idea of impermanence, knowing that failure is temporary, and so is success. The only constant is growth. Let's bring this back to our own lives. Think about the goals you have. Maybe you want to start your own business. Maybe you want to switch careers. Maybe you want to become a better version of yourself. Now, ask yourself, what's holding you back? For most of us, it's not the lack of resources, time, or opportunity. It's fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of judgment. And these fears are rooted in our attachment to the comfort zone. But here's the harsh truth. You can't achieve success without leaving that comfort zone behind. Staying in your comfort zone might give you short-term peace of mind, but in the long run, it will limit your potential and rob you of the opportunities for real success. Remember, the only thing that doesn't change in life is change itself. Everything else is in a constant state of flux, and if you're not growing, you're essentially moving backward. So, how do we break free? How do we push past this resistance and step into the unknown? First, we need to change our mindset about discomfort. Discomfort is not a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's a sign that you're growing. When you start a new workout routine, your muscles feel sore, but that's because they're getting stronger. The same applies to your mind and your career. When you challenge yourself to do something you've never done before, whether it's learning a new skill or taking on a new responsibility, it's going to feel uncomfortable. But that's where the growth happens. Second, we need to embrace the concept of failure. In today's society, failure is often stigmatized, but it's actually one of the most valuable learning tools we have. Each failure teaches us something we didn't know before. Thomas Edison famously failed thousands of times before inventing the light bulb. When asked about it, he said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Imagine if Edison had been afraid of stepping outside his comfort zone. The world would be a much darker place, literally. Third, practice taking small steps outside your comfort zone. You don't have to make radical changes overnight. Start with something small. It could be learning a new skill, meeting new people, or even waking up earlier to make time for self-improvement. The key is consistency. Each small step you take builds momentum, and over time, stepping outside your comfort zone will become second nature. Finally, let's talk about the role of impermanence in all of this. The transient nature of life is a powerful motivator. Knowing that nothing is permanent, not your comfort, not your struggles, not your failures, can help us put things into perspective. If failure is temporary, why fear it? If success is not guaranteed, why not strive for it? The world is changing, and so should we. Our comfort zones, while safe, are not meant to be our final destinations. They are just pit stops on the journey to our greater potential. So, as you leave here today, I urge you to ask yourself, what's one thing I can do to step outside my comfort zone? What's one fear I can confront? Remember, success doesn't come to those who stay safe. It comes to those who are willing to risk discomfort in the pursuit of growth. I hope that the message about stepping out of our comfort zones resonated with you, because now we're going to build on that idea and take a closer look at another powerful concept that often holds us back from success: the fear of failure. In particular, we'll explore the notion of detachment as it relates to this fear, and how learning to love deeply yet remain detached, as taught by Stoic philosophy, can transform how we approach success. Now, if you recall, in our last discussion, we talked about how the world is constantly changing and how growth only happens when we are uncomfortable. But once we decide to step out of our comfort zones, something else inevitably happens. We begin to fear. Fear of making mistakes. Fear of looking foolish. Fear of letting ourselves or others down. This fear of failure can be paralyzing, preventing us from taking action and locking us back into that safe space we so desperately want to leave behind. The root of this fear often lies in attachment. We become attached to outcomes, to success, and to the image we project to the world. We get so caught up in the idea of what success should look like, and in our desire to achieve it, that the mere thought of falling short feels unbearable. We become emotionally dependent on external validation, whether it's through recognition at work, approval from friends or family, or even the likes and comments on social media. But here's where Stoic philosophy gives us a valuable lesson. The Stoics teach us that the secret to both happiness and success is to love deeply but remain detached from the outcome. It's a difficult balance, but it's incredibly powerful. Detachment, in this context, does not mean indifference. It doesn't mean not caring about what you do. On the contrary, it means investing fully in the process, giving your best effort in whatever you pursue, but not becoming emotionally dependent on whether you succeed or fail. Think about it this way. If you are working on an important project and you give it everything you've got, you've already succeeded. The outcome, the final result, whether it turns out as you hoped or not, is simply feedback. If it's a success, that's fantastic. But if it's a failure, it's not a reflection of your worth or potential. It's an opportunity to learn and improve. This is what detachment means, focusing on the journey and the effort, rather than fixating on the result. Now, let's break this down in the context of today's world, where success is often measured by visible results, whether it's financial achievement, career status, or social approval. When we become too attached to these external markers, our happiness and sense of self-worth become fragile. Every failure feels like a personal defeat, and every success feels like a temporary high that fades all too quickly. This leads to a vicious cycle of constantly chasing validation, while fearing failure more and more. But what if, instead, we could train ourselves to adopt a stoic mindset. What if we could reframe failure not as something to be feared, but as part of the journey? When we let go of the need to be perfect, we free ourselves to take risks, experiment, and grow. This is where true innovation and success happen. Some of the greatest achievements in history came from people who were not afraid to fail because they were not attached to the outcome. They were committed to the process. Let's look at the example of Thomas Edison again. As I mentioned in our last talk, Edison famously failed thousands of times before inventing the light bulb. Now imagine if Edison had been too attached to each of those failed experiments. Imagine if he had given up after the 10th or the 100th attempt because he was afraid of looking like a failure. We might not have the light bulb today. Edison understood that failure was just part of the process, not something to be feared or avoided. Another great example comes from the world of sports. Take Michael Jordan. Widely regarded as one of the greatest basketball players of all time, Jordan once said, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." Jordan's success didn't come from never failing. It came from embracing failure and learning from it. He was deeply committed to his craft, but not attached to every single outcome. Now, you might be thinking, that's great for people like Edison or Jordan, but what about me? The truth is, this principle applies to all of us, regardless of what we're trying to achieve. Whether you're working on a big project at work, starting a business, pursuing a passion, or even trying to improve yourself, detachment can free you from the fear of failure and allow you to focus on what really matters, the effort and the growth. So how do we practice detachment in our daily lives? First, we need to shift our mindset from outcome-based thinking to process-based thinking. Instead of constantly measuring your success by external results, measure it by the effort and progress you make. Ask yourself, did I give my best today? Did I learn something new? Did I challenge myself? If the answer is yes, then you've already succeeded, no matter what the outcome looks like. Second, we need to learn to accept failure as part of the journey. This doesn't mean you have to enjoy failing. No one does. But it means you stop seeing it as a reason to quit or as a reflection of your value. Failure is feedback. It's information that helps you adjust your course, improve, and grow. The Stoics believed in focusing only on what is within our control. We can control our effort, our discipline, and our attitude, but we can't control every outcome. Learning to accept this will make you stronger, more resilient, and ultimately more successful. Third, we need to detach from external validation. In today's world, it's easy to fall into the trap of seeking approval from others, whether it's through social media likes, professional recognition, or personal validation from friends and family. While there's nothing wrong with being appreciated, it becomes a problem when your sense of self-worth is tied to it. When you detach from needing validation, you gain the freedom to pursue what truly matters to you, without worrying about what others think. And finally, remember that success and failure are temporary, but growth is permanent. The achievements you reach today may not last forever, just as the setbacks you face are not the end of the road. What stays with you is the growth that comes from trying, from learning, and from evolving. Detachment helps us keep this in perspective. So, as we continue on our journey to success, let's embrace the idea of loving the process, but letting go of the outcome. Let's invest fully in what we do, not because we're afraid of failing, but because we're committed to growing. And let's remember that failure is not something to be feared. It's something to be learned from. In our last two discussions, we explored the importance of stepping out of our comfort zones and the power of detachment when facing the fear of failure. Now, as we continue on this path of self-growth and success, I want to focus on one more critical concept: the fluid nature of identity, and how embracing this idea can transform the way we see ourselves, our potential, and ultimately our success. In the modern world, we often define ourselves by rigid labels. We say, I am a student. I am a professional. I am an artist. I am a parent. Or even I am a failure. We wrap our identities in titles, achievements, and roles, believing these to be fixed. But the truth is, identity is fluid. Who we are today is not who we were yesterday. nor is it who we will be tomorrow. If we want to grow, if we want to achieve success, we must understand and embrace this fluidity, because personal evolution is not only natural, it's essential. This concept is beautifully illustrated in existentialist philosophy, particularly through the work of Jean-Paul Sartre. Sartre argued that existence precedes essence, meaning that we are not born with a fixed nature or purpose. Instead, we create ourselves through our choices and actions. In this sense, we are constantly in a state of becoming, evolving with each decision we make, each challenge we face, and each experience we have. But here's the problem many of us face today. We become trapped in fixed notions of who we are. We allow our past, our failures, or even our successes to define us. We tell ourselves, "This is who I am, and I can't change." Whether it's the job we've been in for years, the skills we've mastered, or even the mistakes we've made, we start to believe that our identity is set in stone. This belief is limiting. It holds us back from exploring new opportunities, trying new things, and becoming the person we are capable of being. For example, think about how often you've heard someone say, "I'm not good at math," or "I'm not creative." These are fixed identities we give ourselves based on past experiences, and they become self-fulfilling prophecies. When we tell ourselves that we are one way and that we cannot change, we close the door to growth. We stop learning, we stop trying, and we stop evolving. In today's world, where success often demands constant adaptation, this rigid mindset is dangerous. We live in a time of rapid technological advancements, shifting industries, and evolving social dynamics. The skills and knowledge that brought us success in the past may not be relevant in the future. If we cling to the belief that we are a fixed entity, that we are defined by our current abilities, titles, or roles, we will find ourselves outpaced by the changing world. This is where the fluidity of identity becomes crucial. We are not static beings. We are capable of change, growth, and reinvention. In fact, it's essential that we constantly redefine ourselves if we want to achieve long-term success. The people who thrive in today's world are those who understand this. They are the ones who continuously adapt, learn new skills, and evolve with the times. They don't let past failures or old identities hold them back. They embrace the idea that they are always becoming something new. Take the example of Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple. Jobs was fired from the very company he helped build in 1985. For many, this could have been the defining moment of failure, a point from which they never recovered. But Jobs didn't let that moment define him. Instead, he used it as an opportunity to reinvent himself. He explored new ventures, including the creation of Pixar, and eventually returned to Apple to lead it to unprecedented success. Jobs understood that his identity wasn't fixed. He didn't see himself solely as the person who had failed or succeeded in the past. He saw himself as someone who could continue to grow and evolve. Now, let's look at this idea from a more personal perspective. Think about your own life. Who are you right now? And who do you want to become? If you're feeling stuck, whether it's in your job, in your personal life, or in your growth, it's often because you've defined yourself too narrowly. You've attached your identity to a role, a past failure, or a limiting belief. But what if you let go of those definitions? What if you allowed yourself to see your identity as something fluid, something that can grow and adapt over time? One of the biggest barriers to success today is the fear of change, not just change in our external environment, but change within ourselves. We are often so afraid of losing the comfort of our current identity that we resist the very growth that could lead us to success. But here's the reality. Growth requires change. The person you are today is not capable of achieving the success you aspire to, but the person you are becoming is. And that's the beauty of personal evolution. It's always within your control. This brings us to the idea of personal reinvention. Throughout your life, you will need to reinvent yourself many times if you want to keep growing. This doesn't mean abandoning who you are. It means expanding who you are. It means embracing new roles, new challenges, and new versions of yourself. Whether it's learning a new skill, changing careers, or simply adopting a new mindset, each reinvention brings you closer to your full potential. But to do this, we must first be willing to let go of the fixed identities that no longer serve us. If you've been telling yourself that you're not good enough, that you can't succeed, or that you're stuck in a certain role. Now is the time to change that narrative. You are not defined by your past. You are not defined by your failures. You are not even defined by your current successes. You are defined by your willingness to grow, to adapt, and to embrace the fluid nature of who you are. So, how do we begin this process of personal reinvention? First, it starts with self-awareness. Take a moment to reflect on the labels you've given yourself. Are they serving you? Or are they holding you back? Are they based on past experiences that no longer define who you are or who you want to become? Once you identify these limiting beliefs, you can start to challenge them. Second, we need to cultivate a growth mindset. This is the belief that our abilities and intelligence can be developed through dedication and hard work. When we adopt a growth mindset, we see challenges as opportunities, not obstacles. We understand that failure is not a reflection of our identity, but a stepping stone toward growth. Third, we must be willing to take action. Reinventing yourself doesn't happen overnight. It happens through consistent effort, whether it's learning a new skill, seeking out new experiences, or pushing yourself to think differently. Personal growth is an ongoing process. It requires us to step into the unknown, take risks, and embrace change. Finally, we need to remember that identity is not a destination. It's a journey. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to know exactly who you'll be in 5 or 10 years. What matters is that you remain open to the possibilities of who you can become. Success is not about holding on to a fixed version of yourself. It's about allowing yourself to evolve. Thank you.